I think what BRICS has been echoing in terms of their stance is that they're not just a membership at the time, a membership of just 5 nations and now 9 countries, of course, waiting for Saudi Arabia to officially accept or reject the invitation. But essentially, BRICS has been saying that they represent the global south, particularly in the global order in multilateral institutions such as your UN Security Council, your World Bank, as well as the IMF, and so forth and so on. So essentially, is BRICS wants to have all, especially developing countries, being involved and being considered and consulted and being part of the decision-making processes of the multilateral inside the multilateral institutions.
Yes. Now, we know that this is, at this point in time, a lot is about the numbers game, Raymond, where we're talking about BRICS and the expansion of BRICS. We know this now includes 43% of the world population. This is a sizable, almost half the world population represented by BRICS. And one obviously need to recognize that this represents huge numbers, but also the power a forum like BRICS is able to wield on a global level.
Yeah, of course. I mean, not only the population, but if you look at BRICS now, it has surpassed in terms of GDP the G7. I mean, the G7, you would know that is your top 7 developed countries in the world, and so even though combined with BRICS, with just 9 member states, with developing members, they still surpass the G7 in terms of the GDP. And not only that, also, if you look at the fossil fuel that now the BRICS member states have in terms of their reserves and the member countries, if combined, it also provides for the most fossil fuel reserves in terms of supplying the globe. So essentially, BRICS is heading towards cumulative growth in terms of their member states and in terms of the resources that are required by the world, and of course, the buying power of the populations that are in the BRICS member states.
Yes. Now, also just looking at the global dynamics, Raymond, that are playing out right across the entire world, and this divide between the global south and the global north. Now, looking at BRICS, looking at the BRICS summit, looking at the BRICS membership as well, how historic is this as a turning point in terms of how the global dynamics are actually looked at in more ways than one? I know we talk about things like climate change, we talk about economies, we talk about development as well. But at the end of the day, is this going to be a major turning point in terms of how this world is going to operate with a BRICS that obviously has got numbers? You mentioned the GDP as well, surpassing the G7 countries. All of this actually put together, and just to see how powerful a force BRICS can be in the world, and obviously also to change the global hegemony of Western nations in the United States of America.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's ultimately, and what the BRICS has been saying is that we're not here to replace anyone. What we're here to do is to create an alternative, particularly for the developing world. It's like in business, right? So there is a your let's take motor vehicles. Now that in South Africa there is a Chinese brands that are getting into the South African market with cheaper SUVs. And now, what the Chinese have seen is that, and I'm using this as an example. The Chinese have seen is that people would like to drive SUVs, but they cannot afford them with your typical brands. So they're bringing in an alternative in the similar scheme of things, an SUV with the features that your typical SUV from your traditional motor vehicles and industry would provide at the lower rate. And that's what BRICS is saying, is that instead of the world and the member states going into the IMF and the World Bank to secure loans for development with attached conditions, they would rather come to BRICS, the new development bank. There's no conditions. Even now, the development bank has started borrowing member states with their own currencies. Of course, that also takes away the exchange rate difference there, where you have to now secure the dollar in order to repay that loan. So it's those kind of alternative that BRICS is providing. And maybe also to say, the global order has just been towards one-sided, with the UN Security Council, the IMF, the World Bank, WHO, and WTO. I mean, we've seen during COVID how WHO operated in terms of vaccines, and not recognize Russian vaccine, but recognize certain countries' vaccine, whereas there was no any substantial or significant, even scientific results in terms of why. And after the myth of COVID, we've seen a certain vaccine from a certain global north country being with how it has so many side effects which were not revealed during that period. So you can see that BRICS is saying we want to provide an alternative for developing countries to be part of a particular grouping, to have a belonging, to have a sense of belonging, and also working on consensus to have a voice that is equal to everyone, not having a suppressed voice in a way that you're going to UN Security Council, you vote. 13 members can vote yes for ceasefire in Israel and Palestine, and one country can then veto power that particular vote.
Yes, I think you raise a very, very important point here, Raymond, in terms of the imbalance and the global imbalance as far as global institutions are concerned. And in more ways than one, we on the United Nations, the Security Council, veto powers is just one aspect. But I know you've made some reference now to institutions like the World Bank, like the IMF, and particularly looking at the global south, looking at developing nations, looking at the African continent as well. Now, for many, many years, for a long time, Western Europe, the United States of America, the former colonial powers have had a huge footprint on the African continent. We know to a large extent with disastrous impact as well. And again, coupled with all these conditions that you speak about, the likes of the IMF, World Bank, loans, trying to bail out, many of these countries. And something had to give at some point in time where this imbalance could not continue, or it couldn't be sustained for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, a similar example with South Africa. We were colonized, and after colonization, there was an apartheid system, but it could not be sustained. I mean, we now live in a democracy where we even live in a GNU, government of national unity today, because the absolute majority could not be sustained. So they come at times where a particular system it's not sustainable, and it has to change. And I think the BRICS members came up with that. And even when you look at the expansion plans, started with 4, 5, now initially it was 11, of course, with Argentina rejecting, and now Saudi have not yet given a formal response. It's a way of more inclusive voice. And if you look at the expansion, it also looked at regional integration. So BRICS did not have a Middle East representation in in its formation and with the expansion last year, which now began officially January this year, also included that. Also in the continent, I mean, BRICS in the continent only had South Africa, and now there's two more member states that sit in the continent, one in the north and one is one in the west. One in the west, yeah. So you can see how the even in Latin America, I mean Argentina and Brazil in that region as well, and China and India in Asia. So you can see the integration that they want to bring using regional kind of regional influential countries in those regions as a start. South Africa in the southern hemisphere of the continent, Egypt in the northern hemisphere of the continent, and of course, there's a debate there with Ethiopia and Nigeria. But of course, there are semantics that one looks at in making that decision. So, what I'm saying is that in the course to change the global order, BRICS is saying, as we've been saying, that ours is to represent the global south, the voiceless, and then of course we need to get all the regions, particularly of the world, as a start to speak with one voice in these multilateral platforms.
We are here in the middle of a Zahra neighborhood. The whole neighborhood is already destroyed. More than 17 towers are down. Here, as you can see, the firefighters trying their best to help. The people are still under the rubble. A lot of the people.
Join Hamza on his exclusive South African tour as he shares his personal experiences, never before seen footage, and powerful insights on the ongoing genocide in Gaza. This is more than just a talk. It's an invitation to witness Gaza through the lens of Hamza Nchabeleng. Don't miss this opportunity to meet the photojournalist who brought Gaza's pain and perseverance to the world in its darkest moments. Follow Salam Media on social media pages for more on this tour and be part of the conversation.